RT, I practice a variety of martial arts, but the goal is to maintain longevity, fitness, and mental stability. Good. How do you showcase dark triad traits if I don't fight in the ring? Exactly. And I have many just dormant. Okay. You mean your dark triad traits are dormant? All right. I've talked about this before. This is actually a pretty good question because it kind of gets into the perfect is boring. I'll see if I can answer this for you. I'll be as succinct as I possibly can here. When did I do this video? I know what it was. I was criticizing Dr. Jordan Peterson again. And I think it was interesting because Dr. Jordan Peterson has been on record on God knows how many different reels and how many different, podcasts talking about how men need to be dangerous. They have to be ready to, they have to have a capacity for physical violence. Right. And martial arts, yes, that's a capacity for physical violence if it's necessary. If you're trained, of course, if you're taught, to respect the skills that you have, of course. But the thing is that for all of the men need to be dangerous bullshit, then you've got Jordan Peterson in another video talking about how, if you think strong men are dangerous, you should see what weak men can do. And it's just like this, it's nothing but contradictory message after contradictory message. And when I was doing sort of the analysis of this, I said exactly the same thing that you're saying, which is it's good to have a capacity for violence. It's good to be able to be built. Like when you see a guy like that's yoked, when you see a guy that's got some muscle to him, a lot of times all it takes is that, if a guy was going to try to fucking roll you on the street or something like that, if you're big enough, they're not going to fuck with you because they're like, nah, this guy looks like he could pound me into the fucking pavement. Right. And there are, I think they've done this. They've done studies with like convicted, like violent criminals. I said, well, why did you kill the guy that you killed? Or why did you mug the guy that you mugged? And one of the first things I'll say is he looked like a guy that I could mug. He had the look of somebody that like I could abuse and that I could take advantage of, right? That's where the conversation starts, but it always starts with that. And so if there's a weak look, there's also certainly a strong look as well. And I think one of the things that Jordan Peterson really misses the boat on is when he talks about how men need to have a capacity for violence. I 100% agree with that. But the problem is he says, but you got to keep the sword in the sheath, right? I'm like, well, what the fuck does it matter? Because if you have a capacity for violence and if you have a capacity for dark triad traits, it doesn't matter. I'm using the violence part, like as you said, you mentioned martial arts. I'm using that as sort of the example here. But if you want to say, well, I actually have some dark triad traits, but I sort of keep them under wraps. I think a lot of us do. I think that, quite honestly, from my perspective anyways, I think that everybody has a certain level or certain tolerance level for psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism, amongst other things too. There's also if you look at the big 5 personality traits too, there's agreeableness and there's other traits. Just because we call these 3 dark, everybody fixates on those, right? There's other traits. We could talk about those, and sometimes people keep those hidden too, or they lean into them depending on what's rewarded. So if your dark triad traits are rewarded by the chicks who want to suck your dick, or if your agreeableness is rewarded by, a receptive audience because you're a stand-up comedian or something like that, well, that might also be something that works in your benefit as well. However, if you have a sword in a sheath, it's just a sword in a fucking sheath, and nobody knows that there's a sword in that sheath until you pull it out and you fucking use it. And that's the thing that gets me about the whole, you have to have a capacity for violence. Well, no one knows you have a capacity for violence until you beat a motherfucker down. That's when people know that you have a capacity for violence. Or maybe you do a tournament, a sparring tournament, in whatever martial arts you practice, right? Maybe you actually display the fact that you have that capacity. Because if you have a guy, like I happen to know, be pretty close personal friends with John Fitch. John Fitch, MMA, former MMA like champion, belt wearing fighter, right? John Fitch will probably fucking bury my ass, right? I know that. I've seen him fight. But if you see John Fitch and you don't know he's John Fitch, and he see him with he looks like Easy Rider, man. I mean, he's got like shoulder length long hair, and he's got his beard and everything. He looks fucking like he's crazy, If I didn't know that was John Fitch, I'd say that's a homeless motherfucker on the street. That dude would fucking kill you in like several different ways. But the sword is in the sheath. The sheath is he looks like he's, straight out of Easy Rider. The sword in the sheath is he doesn't like mouth off about it. He doesn't pop off about, hey man, I'll kill your ass because I'm happen to be John Fitch and I'm an MMA fighting champion, right? He's not going to say something like that. But unless you know that dude could probably whoop your ass, it seems like cowardice. Unless you're a guy who's familiar with that guy's skills and he backs down from say, hey, it's okay. I realize you're drunk. It's okay. Whatever, please, no disrespect, but, please leave the club, whatever, and he's doing something like that, knowing, unless the guys know that you can do that, it seems like it's cowardice. It seems like it's a de-escalation of something that ought to be escalated instead of de-escalated. So, but that's the example I'm saying. So what about dark triad personality traits? Well, same thing until you show them, until you exercise them. And I'm not saying you go willy-nilly and like people want to use this as a binary extreme, right? Oh, well, Rollo said I should just go full Machiavellianism and full, psychopathy. Boy, I can't wait to be the Joker, right? It's like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that maybe you express them or you put yourself into situations where that behavior might come out. And it might come out legitimate. It could plausibly come out legitimately in those situations. And again, it's not, don't, be something you're not, or be a poser, or try to like get into situations where you can impress some girl because, hey, look, I've got an opportunity to use my Machiavellian side. Don't look for shit like that. But also don't back away. Don't dissuade it when that opportunity arises. So there you go.